Monarch has been sitting in the store for years for global XP, and I have to say, it's never been worth it. Until now. In 5.8, Monarch got a very large buff. Now, global XP is precious, and there are some tasty battleships at tier 7, including Flandre, Tirpitz, Bama, Massa, Odin, Roma, Champagne, and Gascon. If you're curious of my top battleship pick, I'll let you know a little later in the video. But back to Monarch. She went from her stock A-hole to a B-hole. It gave her more HP, a faster rudder, and decreased chance of catching fire. Oh, and the AA DPS shot up from 300 to 450. It is a massive improvement that this aging Brit battleship needed. It's not known for its heavy-hitting AP or long-range accuracy, but hey, tell that to the Azuma from 18 kilometers. That's a decent way to start the match. And in battleships like this that have good HE and AP, it's the reason I usually always try to have armor-piercing shells loaded. You never know if you're going to catch that unsuspecting person broadside at the beginning of a match. And hey, worth it. This match, speaking of, turned out to be one of those 5 medal matches, which is always a good feeling. So Monarch, her damage output has really always been there. This ship has been in the game since, I believe, the first year. Now her survivability and mobility are much improved, and I have to say, all of it together makes this a very strong battleship now. Her best feature, in my opinion, are these guns. They're small, 15 inches, but with a blazing fast reload and British HE. The high explosive hits very hard, and it sets lots of fires. This is the DPM king of tier 7, believe it or not. Not counting secondaries or torpedoes or anything like that. And the accuracy, it's okay, as this Akatsuki is going to find out. Again, this is the second IJN Torp Boat Dev Strike of the week, and I am freaking loving it. The Sigma 1.8, it's really not amazing. It's not near as good as the Buff Guard with her 2.0, but Monarch has an extra gun and a more modern turret configuration. The accuracy trolled a little bit, and partially maybe it was because of the way that I set the ship up, so let's look at that next. I didn't like the 45-second turret rotation, so I put turret rotation in slot 1. But after playing some of these games, I think I would switch to aiming systems and then just try to have a little more forethought, which, you know, every good battleship player should. You should already have your guns facing in the right direction. Sometimes I just don't think ahead enough, so I would rather have the faster turret traverse. But anyways, my build, Azur Lane Nelson, Cunningham, and Iachino finish off the build. My theory being, the reload is fast enough at 22 seconds with an accuracy build, and the super heals, that's right, super heals, are going to help with survivability, so I just want to make sure more shells hit their targets. If you're free to play, I would say Cunningham in full accuracy, but hold on, there is a case for Madden as well, because of the heals. Monarch has those certified ship printers on board, 2 stock heals that will bring back 20,000 health. So if Madden is a level 16, you now have 4 of these heals, and an extra 40,000 HP isn't anything to scoff at. I figure the longer you're alive, the more chance you have to win the game, the more chance you have to deal damage, and all of it together just could be better than Cunningham's accuracy. I'm curious what you guys think below though. I have a lot of really great salty players here that are good with British battleships, so let me know down below. Madden with On Second Thought has a 19.8 second reload, and that's pretty disgusting, so I'll let you guys decide which one you like more. Now, speaking of the survivability, Monarch now has 60,000 health points. It's still not a lot, is it? But it beats the hell out of 53,000. Torp production is not that good, 28%, and the armor is also not great. If we take a look at the armor viewer, 32 millimeters of armor everywhere means it gets pinned by all 203 millimeter HE shells. And of course the German 152s like Mainz, Weimar, and blah blah blah. HE spam is definitely an issue you're gonna have to watch out for. Take a look at the Citadel though. This thing is further below the waterline than the Titanic. It makes it pretty hard to Citadel, so that is definitely a plus of Monarch. Now the game's off to a decent start, especially for us, and battleships are really one of my favorite targets in this thing. I have to say though, sometimes with a ship that has HE this good that reloads this fast, you get in a rut of just shooting the HE, and I really need to be switching to AP more often for the broadsides, because, you know, it's decent. This fast reload is a reason I also love French battleships with 380s. If ships are angled well, you can just sling HE and start burning them down. Sure, these Monarch shells don't have a lot of armor pen and stopping power, but through the volume of fire, you can rack up quite a bit of damage, and I think this game ends up with a solid amount of damage. Definitely could have been higher if I was playing a little better. The high explosive and armor-piercing DPM numbers are the best at Tier 7, edging out Brandenburger and Kansas, so there are some bragging rights for Monarch right there. And I could be wrong, I think before Kansas got nerfed in this update, she actually was the AP DPM king for Tier 7, but now Monarch holds that title. The AA, it only reaches 4.5 kilometers. That kind of sucks, but at least the damage per second is more in line with other Tier 7 BBs now. Rather than being terrible, like it was before at 300, it's now up there at 450, which is just decent. And flak bursts and things like that, I don't know. I have no way of knowing statistics like that without specially texting one of the community managers, and yeah, it's just not worth it to do for every ship review. Against enemy CVs, at least now with some improved maneuverability, you can do a little bit of dodging in Monarch. Before the buff, her rudder shift was 21 seconds, which was slower than a 7-year itch. To me, it didn't make a lot of sense because if you look at Monarch, it's a pretty small battleship, but now it feels fine, and her turning circle is a beautiful 790 meters. Not as good as Kansas, Alabama, or Massa, but just behind them. She maneuvers pretty well. Still not very fast in a straight line though, 28 knots. It's pretty slow for Tier 7 battleships. Now, however this Lion got in the middle of the map, I don't freaking know, but he's here, and we're trying to take him out, and I was finding myself getting frustrated switching back and forth between Lion and Talon. I really wanted Talon dead, but this game was one of those matches where my teammates seemed to snake the kill on a lot of ships at the last second over and over and over again, but still, it was a good match, so I can't really complain. Monarch's concealment. It's average on paper. With the concealment module though, we have it down to 12.4 on this build, which is really, really good. Overall on paper, the stats of Monarch speak for themselves. This is an incredible battleship, but how does she play? Great. I think the reason I loved KGV so much, the Tier 6 Tech Tree Brit battleship, was her offensive potential with those small caliber guns that reload quickly and dealt a lot of HE and fire damage. I think it was a really, really solid battleship, and Monarch just kind of does everything a little bit better than the KGV. The AP, I know it's not super great or super useful, but what makes it fun and good is the quick reload. So enemies, a lot of times they'll want to turn out, and they'll wait for you to fire, and then they will turn out, and they'll either shoot at you with all of their guns, or they'll, turn and kite, blah, blah, blah. But with this fast reload, it makes it really hard for people to do that. And so they might think they're safe to turn, and then you have AP loaded, and you can take them to Pound Town. So I love the fast reload of Monarch. Now the debate about global XP. Since we are talking about Monarch, it's a tough choice. There's a lot of great battleships for 750,000, and sometimes it could be hard to pick. Flandre, newly buffed, and it's looking like the best secondary French battleship in the game right now. Crazy good secondary DPM, albeit a lot of those 100mm shells are going to shatter, but now it has a 7% stock fire chance. Flandre is a flamethrower now. If you happen to have Justinian Lions, it makes it even more powerful, but very, very good battleship now, and it's one of the top contenders. Alabama, also a great battleship. It's stupid accurate, it's not fast, but it's agile with the small turning circle. The guns are 406mm, same size as Iowa. They have a little slower shell velocity than Iowa, but they still pack a wallop, and I find they don't overpin cruisers as much, so Alabama is a solid American battleship. And of course, any American BB at Tier 7 has artillery plotting room in slot 4, making them the most accurate battleships in the game, really. Alabama, I would rate her behind another South Dakota class battleship at the tier that can really do everything Bama can and more, and that brings us to Massachusetts. She has, again, the great gun characteristics of Alabama, but she also has really long-range secondaries that are accurate, so she can be a good brawler. Her armor protection is robust enough, and the Citadel's well below the waterline. If you've ever tried to drive by on Massachusetts, it is very hard to hit the Citadel. The 406mm guns, like I said on Alabama, they're perfect for tier 7. You can overmatch 27mm of armor, which is pretty common at the tier, you know, the Hippers, the Prince Eugens, things like that. And I always love the South Dakota class battleships. Their turning circle is small, their rudder shift is fast, so they're pretty agile. Key is also available for 750,000 global XP. It's basically an Amagi with torpedoes. If you like the IJN battle cruiser playstyle, there might be something here for you. She's quick, she's good at kiting, she has good gun angles, I feel like, but bad AA and the armor is meh, a lot of 32mm, so maybe not the best brawler. Odin has a 5km sonar and is fairly agile. She also has torpedoes for point defense. Her armor scheme is still really good by today's standards. Turtleback, icebreaker, 50mm deck, but she has a low HP pool, 4th lowest at tier 7. Actually, that might be different now with Monarch. Anyway, she's pretty low as far as HP pools go. As German battleships go, she has a very small and weak secondary armament and mediocre AA. She also has the smallest main battery guns of any tier 7 battleship, 305mm, that's the same size as Alaska. There's a lot of reasons to overlook Odin in my eyes, so honestly I would rank her kind of lower. Champagne has been buffed pretty recently, has absurd gun range and reload. She's a lot better than Gascon, which is also on this list with the bigger guns and the overmatch potential. They are fast, both Champagne and Gascon, very, very quick. Gascon clocks in at 34 knots base. That's the fastest tier 7 battleship. But really, I would take Champagne over Gascon. Gascon is in need of some buffage, I would say. Roma got a healthy buff in 2022. She finds herself in a pretty good place. She doesn't have SAP secondaries like Veneto, but she has more accurate guns. They reload fast, she has good shell velocity, it makes aiming easier. She's a fast battleship at 30 knots and a good rudder, so very solid. Tirpitz, I talked about her in my most recent video. She's just okay. She has a fast reload for her main guns. She has a decent amount of secondaries, although they are shorter range. 30.5 knots of top speed, that's pretty quick, and 4 torpedoes on each side. She can still do some good brawling, although like Bismarck, I feel like she just takes massive chunk damage, so maybe not as tanky as she looks on paper. And then here we are with Monarch. I see no reason why this Brit battleship now couldn't be near the top of this list. She just has everything she needs to be decent, and the best part, pretty low skill floor. So mediocre battleship players like me can still do okay in this ship and put up decent numbers. If you're looking for a more in-depth rundown of other GXP ships in the game at other tiers, destroyers, cruisers, look no further than this breakdown video here. Be sure to hit the like button if you found this video to be helpful, and let me know down below what your thoughts are on the top global XP battleship currently at tier 7. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future content. This is Derka signing off. Catch you in the next one. See ya.